Sandbox MMA fans, it's time for the UFC 310 card builder. What we have done is built the card for UFC 310 with all the fights that I think should be made. It's going to be taking place in Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena. It's going to be taking place on December 7th. So these are everyone that I think should be fighting on the card. I made a pretty good card, but also a reasonable card because I know Dana doesn't like to overly stack things unless they're, in Abu Dhabi or Saudi Arabia or anywhere but the U.S., honestly. Like, he'll stack anywhere other than the U.S., but it is what it is. Let's just get into this card builder right away. So I need to shrink my camera because y'all don't want to be looking at my beautiful face the whole time. Let's get right into it. UFC 310 card builder. We will start with the first fight of the night on the prelims. Don't get too excited because it's going to be Jeka Saragih versus Austin Bashi. Austin Bashi just fought in the Contender Series. I think he's a pretty decent prospect. He's 22 years old. He's got some work to do. But I think if we give him a couple of layups in the featherweight division, he can continue to get better. Don't think his striking is that good at all, but he has relentless wrestling pressure. Jeka Saragih just got submitted by Weston Wilson. I was thinking Weston Wilson is a matchup here too, but I'm going to go with Austin Bashi versus Jeka Saragih. I think that it can get Austin Bashi a win, make him look good on a big-name card, and it'll give him time to wait and to fight into 2025. He can wait until, May the next time to fight and just keep working on getting better, but I think this is a good fight to start for Austin Bashi. First fight on the card, makes sense to put a Contender Series guy that won this year on it. Let's do Jeka Saragih versus Austin Bashi. Next up, don't get too excited, we got Chelsea Chandler versus Julia Cavalcanti. Now, I know what you're thinking, who the fuck hit these two girls with the ugly stick? But yeah, this is just a classic low-level bantamweight fight that they're going to put on the card. It's a low-level women's bantamweight fight that will be on it. So I put it on there. Let's not take too much time on that. One's coming off a win, one's coming off a loss. I think Chelsea Chandler is just outside the rankings. Cavalcanti, I don't even know where she stands in the rankings, but let's just put them together. They both beat Josiane Nunes. Next up on the card, this is where it's going to start getting a little bit more fun, especially if you're for the hardcores. You got Natan Levy, nothing crazy, but we got Markel Medeiros. Now, I'm a big Markel Medeiros fan. I think he's going to be a good fighter in the UFC. He's young, he's talented, he has a fun fighting style, he has high relentless pressure, in great shape, very physical in the octagon. I think he's a good fighter. I think we want to get him a win, and I think Natan Levy's a good guy to get a win over, and if not, you get a good win for Natan Levy. So, you put Markel Medeiros versus Natan Levy on here. I think it's a pretty good fight to make for those early prelims. Now let's start stacking this thing a little bit more. You got Jesus Aguilar, who's just coming off a win over Stuart Nickel in Australia, so he's got some name value from UFC 305. Think he can turn around pretty quick. He had a very, very short fight, caught Stuart Nickel in a submission very quick and early, and it was kind of a fraudulent submission. They just he rolled into it by accident, and I think he should be fighting Ray Soroya. Ray Soroya is like Tatsuro Taira very early on. They have a very similar fighting style, and he's also very young when he enters the UFC, so I think they're going to try and give him some fights to really help build him up. I think he last fought 2 months ago or something like that, so you're going to be looking at around 6 months off, but he's going to want to stay active. He's going to want to continue to move up those rankings. I think Jesus Aguilar versus Ray Soroya is a good fight, and for all those hardcores that know about Tatsuro Taira and Ray Soroya, you're kind of excited for a Ray Soroya fight, so I think this is a good one to put on the card. Let him get a fight in before the end of the year, and then we move on. So these are the early prelims right here, these four. Now we move on to the regular prelims, the 5 fights. Javid Basharat, who just pulled out of a fight, I don't remember against who, but he recently lost to Amian Zahabi in a close fight, but he just pulled out of a fight. Let's have him fight Victor Henry. I think these are two guys just outside the rankings of bantamweight, could both use one more win each, maybe 2 more wins each before getting into the rankings, and I think it's a good fight to make. So Victor Henry, Javid Basharat, maybe not 2 wins each because bantamweight's fucking stacked, but I think these are 2 guys that if you win, you can start looking towards the top of the outside of the rankings at bantamweight, rack up some wins. It's a good fight. These are 2 pretty well-rounded fighters. I would give the edge to Victor Henry in the striking barely, but I would also give the edge barely to Javid Basharat in the grappling. Javid Basharat, I think, is 14-1. Victor Henry's like 24-6. It's a good fight to make. Next up on the card, Shamil Gaziev. Now, Dana White needs to know that this guy has the potential to be the GOAT. So you do Shamil Gaziev versus Mick Parkin, 2 guys just outside the rankings. I say the winner, you put them at 15 or you give them a fight into the rankings next. Shamil Gaziev, decent grappler, kind of a marauder. Little bit on the spectrum, maybe. But against Mick Parkin, who looks like Shrek. He's kind of like the female version of Vanessa Demopoulos. They both look like Shrek somehow. Mick Parkin does look like some big ogre, but he's winning fights, man. He's undefeated, and I kind of like him to get into the rankings. I think he can be a perennial 10 to 15 heavyweight. In the UFC, him versus Shamil Gaziev is a good fight to make. And dude, you want to talk about star power. Shamil Gaziev gets a win over the undefeated Mick Parkin. He rockets. Now, I know we don't have Lucas Tracy anymore. Sadly, he has moved on to other things right after getting 100K subs. I bet he'll have a weird, crazy comeback that's going to help his channel skyrocket. But the star power of Shamil Gaziev is kind of dwindling without Lucas Tracy. Let's get it back up. Shamil Gaziev, Mick Parkin. You get an undefeated Mick Parkin versus a one-loss Shamil Gaziev. This is a good fight to make just outside the rankings at heavyweight, and the winner can start looking into those rankings. Again, this is on the prelims, fourth fight down from the prelims. I think it's a good one to put on there, and you know Dana's just going to put heavyweights on a fight, so why not do this one? We got Karine Silva versus Tracy Cortez. Two flyweights ranked right around each other's names. I want to say they're like the 11th and the 10th ranked flyweights. Tracy Cortez is just coming off a loss against Rose Namajunas. Karine Silva is just coming off a win. And I think it makes sense, also the sense in the world for these two to fight each other. I don't think that Tracy Cortez needs too much time off. It's been a little bit since we've seen Karine Silva in that octagon. Let's see the two of them fight it out. Next up on and we get a little eye candy. Come on. Can't beat it. Chaos Williams. This is where we're saying the card is about to get stacked. Chaos Williams versus Carlos Pratis. Dude, if this is on the prelims, this card is going to be absolutely stacked. Two welterweight fighters just outside the rankings, both coming off wins, both vicious knockout power. Absolutely vicious knockout power. One is just a really not technical power puncher. The other one is a sniper that fights like Anderson Silva. This is a fight to make. Someone's going out. It will be fireworks. It helps build either of their names if they get a win. If Chaos Williams gets a win, you get to look back at all of his highlights and go, holy shit, this guy knocks everyone out. This is a name that we want to see more. And then if Carlos Pratis wins, his name keeps rocketing up. Those fighting nerds keep going. Now, I do think this is a win for Carlos Pratis, and I am picking a selective fight that I think Pratis will win before he jumps into the rankings. But he's been super active. Give him one more fight. He wants to fight. I was thinking about putting Vicente Luque on here. I was thinking about it. Pratis versus Vicente Luque would be a sick fight, but I didn't do it. I want Pratis to have one more flashy knockout before he jumps into the rankings, and if he wins, then you can give him a big name fight. You can give him an MVP. You can give him a Joaquin Buckley if Buckley loses to Wonderboy, or you can give him a Wonderboy if Wonderboy loses to Joaquin Buckley. So you're looking at matchups, but keep him active. Keep the hype on him. Carlos Pratis, Chaos Williams, this is the fight that you should be making right now. And if that is the second fight down from the prelims, this card is going to be sick. We move on. Ikram Aleskarov versus Gregory Rodriguez as the feature prelim. This fight is a banger. Winner gets ranked 15. If Chris Curtis doesn't fight soon, I guess, or the winner gets a fight into the rankings. Now, I think Gregory Rodriguez should already be fighting into the rankings. He's beating the hell out of everyone outside of the rankings except for Bruno Fajeo, which was he just kind of got clipped. Ikram Aleskarov already got a chance at Robert Whittaker and got shown that there are crazy levels to this game. But these are two guys that are going to walk forward, swing leather, good strikers. You have the Dagestani wrestling base from Ikram Aleskarov, but you have a world champion in BJJ and Gregory Rodriguez. This is a very evenly matched fight, and this is high outside the rankings. These are like the two best guys outside the rankings from middleweight, in my opinion. You can throw Bo Nakal in there as well. But I think these two guys are both better than Shara. Much better than Shara. They're more well-rounded. These are sick fighters. Gregory Rodriguez versus Ikram Aleskarov. This screams pure violence, absolute war. Would love to see this fight. I don't know who would win yet. I'm kind of leaning Gregory Rodriguez, but that's just because I always go against Ikram, dude. I just think he's a little overhyped, but at the end of the day, he's still a very good fighter. So, anything could happen in this fight. Gregory Rodriguez versus Ikram Aleskarov is the featured prelim. Sick fight. We move on. think the main event's right here. If not, I spoiled the whole video. Yes. First fight of the main card, Arnold Allen, Josh Emmett. Need I say more? Need I say more? Fans look at this fight and they go, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. You have a pressure striker with a ton of skill, talent, and technique in Arnold Allen versus the most dangerous puncher, power puncher, one punch knockout puncher in Josh Emmett. Now, you can argue Ilya Taporia, but the way he's getting the knockouts is by stringing those combinations together and catching you with a punch that you didn't know was there. And he does have heavy hands. He's number 2 to me. But I think someone's going to throw an overhand and knock you out with the one overhand, that one punch of the fight. It's Josh Emmett. I think Arnold Allen has a chin. But I'd like to see him get tested against a guy like Josh Emmett. Now, I was thinking you could do Yair Rodriguez versus Arnold Allen. I don't know what the fuck's going on with Yair Rodriguez right now, so we'll just hold off on that one. I would love to see Yair versus Arnold Allen, but Josh Allen versus Josh Allen. It's football season, guys. Get ready. Josh Emmett versus Arnold Allen makes all the sense in the world to me. I think this is a fucking sick fight. Most people are going to think this is a sick fight. And to start off the main card, you're going to be sitting on the edge of your seat right off the bat. Make this one happen. Arnold Allen wants to turn around before the end of the year. Josh Emmett hasn't fought since last December. Make this fight happen. Next up on the card, Anthony Smith versus Dom Reyes. This is already being targeted for it. I know that they're just going to put it on the main card. Now, if Dana fucking clutches up and puts this as a featured prelim, and you load up the rest of the main card, you do a Josh Emmett versus someone else in featherweight, and you do an Arnold Allen versus Yair or something like that, holy smokes, that'd be great. But I know Dana White at this point. I know all he cares about is seeing what he wants to see before he dips out of the sport. But you know what? I love this fight too. Because I think Dom Reyes can win, and the goal for this fight is to get Dom Reyes a win and let him continue to climb up those light heavyweight rankings. The resurgence of Dom Reyes is upon us, and I think Dom Reyes can honestly beat the piss out of Anthony Smith. I think he can destroy his legs with low kicks. I think he can outbox Anthony Smith, and I think he can stuff any Anthony Smith takedown. This has Dominic Reyes decision written all over it to me, and I think he beats the piss out of Anthony Reyes in this fight. We're going Dom Reyes, Anthony Smith as the fourth fight down on the card. Now we go with the featured fight. Colby Covington versus Ian Gary. I think Colby's more likely to take the fight now that we saw Ian Gary look terrible against MVP. He looked really fucking bad against MVP. He won the fight, don't get me wrong, but he looked really fucking bad. Really bad. I think Colby Covington exposed the grappling of Ian Gary. And I also think Ian Gary can piece up Colby on the feet. So I don't know what would happen, but this would help make the press conference insane. This would help add pay-per-views to it. You're looking at like the 7th and the 4th or 5th ranked welterweight. Guys, this fight needs to be made, or I don't want to see Colby in the fucking UFC anymore. Now, I could have put Poirier versus Colby on here. There's a world in which those two fight in MSG, but I actually don't think Poirier is ready to turn around. He got fucking injured. Like, his knee, he might have fucked up his ACL in that fight with Islam. His hands were fucked up. I think he's going to need a little bit of time off, and I think he could do a, like, Justin Gaethje trilogy fight, or we can see something like that in the future, or he can do a Arman Sarukian fight if Arman loses to Islam when they fight, or something like that. But I don't know. I think this is a great fight to make. You do Ian Gary versus Colby Covington. Let's make it happen. This is a fight we all want to see. This helps sell pay-per-views. But you know what else does? Is a 5-round co-main event between Dan Hooker and Justin Gaethje. Bruh. 5 rounds. Gaethje versus Hooker. Pure violence. This fight's nuts. This fight is nuts. If Gaethje wins, he's right back in line for a title shot. He really is, because, like, who else is it? Like, who else are you going to do? He's beating all the guys in the top 5 outside of Max, who isn't really in their division. Max beats most of the people in the top 5. You got Dan Hooker, who just got a win against Gamrot, which is a huge win for the division. If he gets a win, he already has a fight with Islam, so maybe he takes one more. Maybe it gets him the Charles Oliveira fight that he really wants. But this fight is pure violence. They're standing up on the feet the whole time. They're trading low kicks. They're trading jabs. They're winging hooks at each other. Dan Hooker's throwing knees. Justin Gaethje's throwing rolling thunders. Like, this fight is nuts. This fight is nuts to make. It's a dream fight. Make it happen. Justin Gaethje, Dan Hooker, 5 rounds. None of this 3-round bullshit. You make this a 5-round co-main event, and it absolutely slaps. And then we get into the main event. And I think they're ready for it. It's Arman Tsarukyan versus Islam Makhachev for the lightweight title. You're featuring lightweights in the main and the co-main event here. This is the fight you have to make for the lightweight championship. It is. It's Arman's time to fight. And I think while I know Arman's ready to go, and his suspension will be up by this point, Islam Makhachev wasn't ready for Abu Dhabi, but I think 6 weeks later he is. And he's talking like he is. I think Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan is the fight to make. Now, you could make this in the early part of next year. You could do Strickland versus Duplessis 2 on this card. You could do Shavkat versus Bilal on this card. I don't think it'll be Connor Chandler, though. I really think that Dana White wants a title fight to feature here at the end of the year, because if you don't feature a title fight at the end of the year, then you have way too many to start next year, and you're just pushing them too far down the line. I think Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan is a sick fight to make. I think Islam will be ready to go. I think Arman's ready to go. And I think this is one of the most competitive fights for Islam Makhachev in the division. Make it happen. Because then you have this fight, and you can look at the winner of this fight as a potential for the next contender. There's potential that if they have a sick highlight, they fight for the title next. And I know we've seen Islam versus Hooker already, but what if it's Arman that wins? Then you can see one of these two guys fighting. I think this is a sick fight to make. If Arman wins, you can even make a trilogy. There's so much that you can do after this if you make this fight happen. This is the UFC 310 card builder. Hope you enjoyed it. If there are other fights that you wanted to see, please let me know. I may make, you know what? I am going to make a final fight night of the year card for all of you. It's going to be fight nights. There's not going to be title fights on it, but it is going to be sick matchups that we want to see happen before the end of the year. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Let me know if you think there are better matchups to be made here, because I may include them and give you a shout out in our final video. So let me know. Thanks again for watching.